New Buddhaware Dhamma Talks. Geoff Hunt presents a talk on some aspect of the Buddha's teaching.
Right, well, good morning, everyone. So what I'd like to talk about is what I've called Think-ism. Think-ism, think-ism. Now, think-ism is a problem for us, especially in the modern world, in that it gets in the way of what we're trying to do with mindfulness. I want to make a distinction between thinking about X and being with X. Now, thinking about X means that you're holding in your mind a trace, a memory, an object, an image of things past, present, future, or none of those. Could be fantasy. Now, I think it's been said by many others, probably, that distinctive feature of the society or the civilization we live in now is that we find it very difficult to stop thinking. We want to turn everything into thought, so that it seems to us that something is not real unless we've turned it into a thought. We want to explain everything, that's thinking. We want to evaluate it, we want to accept it, we want to reject it, we want to relate it to something else. All of that is thinking. Right. Being, I'm just using this distinction myself, being with something is not the same as thinking about it. Let's get that very clear first of all. So if I look at a flower or look at a tree, and then the old brain box gets into gear, what kind of tree is that? I wonder how tall it is. I wonder whether it might fall over onto the road one day. That's not being with the experience at all. It's thinking about it. Now, it's a very strange thing that more and more we tend to substitute being with something with thinking about it. Being with something means focusing on it, attending to it, but without the thinking. It's like the mind is resting in that tree or flower, whatever it is, but not trying to explain it. Have you noticed how often one comes across a flower or something and says, what kind of flower is that? Right, immediately one has lost it. There's not anything wrong with thinking. We'll come back to that in a minute. It's that it can get in the way. Because once the mind starts to answer the question, what kind of flower is that? It's entering into a process which has got nothing to do with mindfulness. Mindfulness is being with that thing. It's just, if you like, resting the mind in it and gradually letting go of all that conceptualization, concepts coming up in our minds. Oh, I know you'll all say, well, that's pretty difficult, isn't it? How do you do that? Well, it's become difficult. It's not difficult in certain circumstances. There are circumstances in which people do something without thinking about it. It can even be very complicated, and they're fully absorbed in it. Imagine a gymnast. Gymnast is just about to go flying through the air. Do you think that on the way through the air, he's going to be thinking about anything? No. It's a bare experience. It's the experience itself. And if you like, the knowledge of how to do that is not conceptual. Can you imagine the gymnast about to go flying through the air thinking, right, now I've got to take 2 steps to the left, 1 to the right, push myself into the air? He would fall flat on his face. So it's not that I'm saying anything wrong with thinking, right? We'll still come back to that. But beware of when you are thinking, because there's a lot of suffering behind thinking. There's also quite a lot of pleasure, because we think about pleasurable things, which often don't last very long. We might have a rather morose sort of attitude, which turns everything into negative. If I'm not in a good mood, I see my mind doing that. I just say, no, 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 no. Don't be morose. Let go of that. Because I'm aware that something morose is coming up. But if I'm not aware, the negative thing I'm thinking about or feeling will grow. Now this is suffering, and we're going in the direction, we're going in a dangerous direction, because that feeling can turn in gradually over a longer term into hatred, for example, or even self-hatred. So look, in mindfulness, we want to try and let go of the thinking. And I'm going to come in a moment to ways we can do that. Okay. So being with means one is simply somehow aware of, but not giving it any kind of narrative or description or explanation. Now, we live in a society that is so completely mesmerized by scientific explanation that we tend to do that automatically now. And we are losing our direct experience of things and of each other. No sooner do I meet somebody new than my brain box has started off. I wonder what that accent is. Is he Welsh? Is he Italian? I wonder what his education was. Is he brighter than me? All this stuff that's swirling around. Of course, the danger is you completely lose the discussion or the communication you're having with this person that you've just met, because you're trying to fit that person into a category or into a theory, if you like, trying to pigeonhole that person. Being with is just resting and experiencing something and knowing that you're experiencing it. Because what are we trying to do? We're trying to let go of all that which causes our suffering, which boils down to attachment. And thinking is a form of attachment. It's attachment to the concepts and the feelings that arise in your mind. And it may, in a whole lifetime, never occur to you that it is you that is allowing that to happen. And yet you have a choice. Move away from that. And just be with the tree. Don't try to explain it. While I know it's an oak tree, and it's about 70 years old, and it's got some parasites living on it, and birds land on the left-hand side, coming from over that direction, while I'm doing all of that, I'm not actually being with the tree at all. I'm not having an experience of the tree. I'm having an account of the tree. Okay, now let's get this clear. This is one of the dangers of being a meditation teacher, is that people often don't understand that when one is saying something, one wants to tip over to the right or over to the left. That, for example, you could now say, how can I live without thinking? Thinking is automatic. Thinking is one of the evolutionary developments of the Homo sapiens. Right, so we're doing more thinking. So I can't do without thinking. In fact, you can, and you do, but you don't notice that you do. Okay? So with thinking, it's really a matter of where you are on the path and how far you've gone along the path. Something that is helpful to one person is a hindrance to another person, because they're at different levels. What causes suffering is a thinking that one apparently can't stop, which allows no space for self-awareness, that allows no peace, and which is mostly fruitless. So it's not all thinking that's bad, normally. You need to become aware of what it is that your mind is doing. And when one can, to let go of the thinking. Now, for one person, it might be a benefit to think about, e.g., the bird in the tree, rather than it's just a tree, something gets in the way. That might be a step up. But at least now they've let go of a whole bunch of explanations about the tree. But for another person, it's a step down because they've already gone past that. So let's put it in simple terms. Some people will go for a walk and then they'll say, look at that beautiful bird in that beautiful tree. And isn't that part of what we're doing in mindfulness? Is to appreciate the beautiful things around us. Now, that is true for a person at this level, but it's not true for a person at a different level. It's true for a person on the, if you excuse my saying, on a lower rung of the ladder, because at least they've let go of the negativity and have moved into seeing the beauty in something. That's a step up for that person. But for another person who understands all this and is able to work with it, they've got to let go of the beauty as well, which doesn't sound very promising to most of us because we haven't quite understood what we're doing in mindfulness. So I am making a judgment when I say, isn't that a beautiful bird song or whatever? Now, there's nothing right or wrong about it. We are beyond right and wrong. We are trying to move towards, bit by bit, towards nirvana. Nirvana is an ideal state in which all conceptualization has gone. Nothingness. Blissful nothingness. Complete peace. No thoughts. So we do this in stages. We don't do 10 minutes of a meditation and then, okay, I'm enlightened. My mind is empty. Right? Okay, so let's go back to this idea of what it is that we're doing when we're not thinking, when we're approaching something in a non-thinking way. Okay, well, take some ice cream, right? Being offered some ice cream. Now, thinking about the ice cream, as you will know, is not the same as tasting the ice cream. If you had never seen ice cream in your life and someone gave it to you, you wouldn't know what to do with it. But when you see it's something, it can be eaten, then you're struck by the coldness of it. So you're going through a process that in Buddhism we call phenomena. It's phenomenal. That is, by phenomena, we mean direct experience of something without any conceptualization. So the phenomenon of cold ice cream, the taste, the actual taste and sensation, is not the same as I am thinking, where did they buy that ice cream? Is that strawberry ice cream or what? What is that? And how much did it cost? And no. We are destroying our ability to be peaceful and together. 100 brains all thinking different things. No wonder we're all so anti each other. We only seems recently we're starting to come back to our senses. An ice cream doesn't need to be called an ice cream in order to be an ice cream. As I said, I think Shakespeare said a rose is a rose, right? Whatever you call it. Right. So, what about somebody who's never tasted ice cream? Imagine now that you've been given the job of explaining to this person what this is going to be like. They've never tasted ice cream, but you are going to give them this perfect explanation of what ice cream is. You find you've got it cut out for you. Very difficult, because you're trying to do an entirely different process. There is no similarity whatsoever between the taste of ice cream and the thought of ice cream. You know, this is hard to accept. They're even, from a neurological point of view, they're two parts of the brain. Taste of ice cream is, it's on the tongue there, right? You get the texture as well. But if you were thinking about it, you might miss the texture because you're not being with the ice cream. Right? When you be with something, you're opening up a space in which anything can happen. Okay, think-ism. Think-ism is when that becomes a way of life, that attaching to thoughts, that giving superiority to thoughts, that, yeah, that sense that if I can't explain it, then there's something wrong with my way of thinking, perhaps. Actually, this would be another talk, perhaps for the roots session. There's a whole lot more that we can't actually conceptualize than there is that we can conceptualize. What we can conceptualize is very small compared with what is completely unconceptualizable, if that were a word. But we'll come to that at the root session, okay? Okay, another one that you will have heard me say before is the example of swimming. Right, now, there are books about swimming. Yes, but how are they to be used? You know, you could read the book on swimming and still not really be able to swim. On the other hand, if you get the balance right, you might learn to swim by getting in the water and now and then popping into the book. But when it's not giving superiority to the book, just because it's in writing doesn't make it superior. What makes it superior for you is that you do it. Once you actually get in the water and flap about. Now you're learning. But remember, we're asking which rung on the ladder you want. For some people, it's useful to go to the book for a while. Some other people, it's oh, I've got that. I don't need that. I'm now trying to do advanced swimming, such as a backstroke or something. Okay, I can't learn. No, this is obvious. I can't learn to swim without getting in the water. And all the books in the world cannot put that right. On the other hand, it is just possible, it's more than possible, that you could learn to swim and never have looked at a word about it. You see kids in Indonesia that get in the water, learn to swim within a day, and then dive into the water to get certain edible creatures from the bottom of that part of the ocean. And it's amazing what they can do, because you can sense when you just watch how they're swimming that they are being with the swimming, they are being with the water. They're not following any rules. They are being with the water. They're almost like they're becoming the water. So another way, now we need to think a little bit about relief here. So how do I deal with this? And I think maybe we could talk about this next week, because I think we're kind of doing flyby learning, where, you know, there's never enough time to actually absorb how it is I should respond to this. What happens then is that the teaching of the Dharma itself becomes a thought process, not a do process. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with books. Ask yourself, do you need the book or not? Do you think that Ajahn Chah, who's now dead, died in his 90s, who was a leader of the Theravada forest tradition, do you think he goes around with a volume of books just to remind him how he's supposed to do the meditation? The whole thought is ridiculous. We get the meditation from him in the first place. We put it in a book. So what is the book going to do? Depends. Okay, let's think about relief. How do we relieve? How do we move on from this? How to relieve think-ism? Well, what I've just said actually applies to that as well, because I can start thinking about think-ism, and that won't get me any further. I've got to change my attitude, if you like, my understanding. Well, I've got four little devices here, which we can talk about next week. One is having, let's say one has really got a deep attachment to conceptualizing. I know people that in my family actually that used to talk about this. They every so often they say, "Do you know, I think too much. I think too much." They know that they think too much. It's become a bit of a pain. They want to go for a walk in the park, and the whole time they're thinking about something. They don't notice the park. They don't notice the leaves. They don't notice the caterpillars on the leaves. They don't notice the sky or the clouds passing by. They're thinking about something. I mean, what do you think about that? It's a thought, isn't it? We're not thinking about that. But it's a legitimate thought. Could that be the way to happiness? To have explanations for everything and predictions for everything? So we are never being with anything, not even with our friends and family. Because that's where we learn so much. Well, one thing that used to be used as a beginner's method was to have something physical that we can focus the mind on. So in the old days, they used to have something called kasina, which the monks would use, which would be like a bowl of earth or water, and just look at it, and keep looking at it, trying to be with it rather than describe it. Now, looked at from the outside, we might think this is pretty strange. What is that guy doing? Just looking at a bowl of water. Well, you see, he's doing something very important. He's trying to let go of conceptualizing what is before him and just be with it. Let's say he's trying to move from knowing what it is. This is the first time I've ever seen water, because I've never paid any attention to it. I take it for granted. If no water comes out of the tap, then I might go into a pretty powerful think drive. I'm good at that, but I've never noticed water before, and what a strange thing it is. So one could use like a pebble. I think a pebble is often a good thing. A pebble is a kasina, that is, it is a point of focus for breaking through this strong attachment to thinking or to conceptualizing. 2, walking meditation. Now, there are people that come to me after walking meditation and say, "Did I do it right?" I said, "Well, how do you expect me to know? You're looking in the wrong place. You think that there's a right way of doing it, which you're going to ask the guru what he does, and then we'll follow the rules." Well, right at the beginning, that might just possibly be helpful, but only you know what the experience of walking is, and only you know whether you are attending to it. Walking is something physical. It doesn't need explanation. Maybe the 10-month-old baby would have benefited from an explanation if it had been able to talk. But think about how a baby is taught. You don't teach it with words. You teach it by showing it, by helping that baby to do it. Right? Okay, so walking is a very good exercise at that rung of the ladder. And we do it every time we meet. What we don't want to do when we're doing that is think about the walking, or thinking about. Somebody came to us, in fact, more than once came to me and said, I find the walking difficult. I said, really? What could you tell me how? How is it? How do you experience it? Because I'm always afraid I'm going to crash into the person in front of me. Huh? What's going on there? Just think about it. They're not walking, they're thinking about walking, and they judge that they're not doing it right. Not realizing there is no rightness. You just have to be in the walking. Okay, breathing. Now it's getting more powerful and more widespread as a recognized meditation object, is paying attention to one's own breath. Very effective. Don't start thinking about breathing. Don't start thinking about how your lungs work, etc. Just stay with the actual motion of the breathing, breathing the way it wants to breathe, not the way you dictate it to breathe, which does have some use in some corners, but on the whole, let it breathe as it wants to breathe. It is breathing without you. It breathed without you from the very first day it came to this world. And it'll breathe without you on the very last day you're in this world. Breathing doesn't need you. So don't try to do anything with it or explain it, or anything. Just be with the breathing. That's 3. That will help you with the thinking, letting go of the thinking. Finally, something which I've given a name. I like giving these names to people, although it might increase their thinking, and that is sailing, or sky sailing. You might think I am as nutty as a fruitcake, where every morning when I do my exercises outside, even if it's raining, I look at the sky. Why? Because the sky is a sort of gigantic image of infinity, of no boundaries, no thoughts. It's just empty, or just got some passing clouds. And somehow, just by raising your head and looking at the clouds passing, no clouds, the blueness, you're letting go of thoughts. Unless you start thinking like a meteorologist. Is that a stratus or a cumulus or whatever kind of cloud? So try that. The sky is empty. The sky is infinite. This is where we want your mind to be. So I'm going to stop there. Some of this is in the book, of course, in chapter 8. But I think to try and get it across, I'm going to come back to this and the methods next week. There's going to be more people here as well. So sometimes I think we're going too fast, or rather I've been going too fast. So we'll run through the exercises again. Right, thank you very much for listening. Over to Lynn.
New Buddha Way lets go of East and West and starts afresh in the life we have now. For more information, visit www.newbuddhaway.org.